The greatest battles are not around us, they are within us. Imagine being betrayed by those closest to you, stripped of your dignity and thrown into a pit of despair, yet you refuse to break. That was Joseph's reality. Falsely accused, unjustly imprisoned. Yet the Bible says the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor. Genesis 39:21. How? Because Joseph mastered the art of acting as if nothing bothered him. He didn't let bitterness control him. He didn't allow circumstances to dictate his peace. And because of that, he walked into his destiny. When you learn to act as if nothing bothers you, it doesn't mean you're ignoring reality. It means you're rising above it. You're saying, this thing won't rob me of my peace. This moment won't pull me out of purpose. This emotion won't dominate my destiny. You see, mastering emotional control is not just about being polite. It's a spiritual discipline, a secret weapon. When you can remain steady while the world shakes, God can trust you with more. Right now, someone's emotions are holding them hostage. Anger over an offense, anxiety about the future, frustration with people's actions. But what if I told you that your greatest power isn't in reacting, but in remaining? When you learn to act unshaken, you protect your spiritual growth, deepen your relationships, unlock supernatural productivity, and step into the destiny God has for you. He who is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his spirit than he who takes a city. Proverbs 16:32. In other words, self-control isn't weakness. It's warfare. So here's the core question we must confront today. How do we act as if nothing bothers us, even when everything does? How do we carry peace in a storm, smile in adversity, and walk tall in the face of trials? Over the next few moments, we'll unpack biblical principles and real-life tools that will equip you to walk like Joseph, stand like Jesus, and live like the emotionally unshakable child of God you were created to be. Let's dive in. Before we go further, let's reflect on understanding the power of inner peace. Have you ever watched someone sleep peacefully in a storm? I mean, a real violent storm, lightning flashing, thunder rolling, wind shaking everything around them, and yet they're sleeping like it's a quiet night under the stars. That's exactly what Jesus did. Mark 4:35-41 tells us about a moment that should stop us in our tracks. The disciples were in a boat with Jesus, and a fierce storm came. The wind roared, waves crashed over the sides, and water began to fill the boat. These were seasoned fishermen, men used to the sea. So if they were afraid, this storm was no small matter. And what was Jesus doing? Sleeping in the stern of the boat with his head on a cushion. The disciples, panicking, woke him up shouting, "Teacher, don't you care that we're going to drown?" And Jesus, in his calm majesty, got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." Instantly the wind stopped, the sea became as smooth as glass. And then he turned to them and said, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" Let that image settle in your heart. Not just the miracle, but the mindset. Jesus wasn't reacting to the storm, he was responding to it from a place of peace, inner peace, a confidence so unshaken by external chaos that he could sleep in the middle of it. That's not weakness, that's power. That's dominion over fear. That's trust in the Father. This kind of peace isn't the absence of problems. It's the presence of confidence in God. You see, storms will come. Jesus didn't promise calm seas. He promised his presence, and that makes all the difference. Isaiah 26:3 says, "You will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you." That verse doesn't say God will keep you in perfect peace when everything around you is quiet. It says He'll keep you in perfect peace when your mind is fixed on Him. It's an internal focus, not an external condition. When your heart is anchored in God, the winds may blow, but you won't break. The waves may rise, but you won't sink. Because you're not reacting to the chaos, you're responding to it from a center of stillness. You're not scrambling to fix things in your own strength. You're standing in trust. Let me share a story with you. During one of the darkest economic seasons in recent history, there was a business leader known for his faith. While companies were collapsing and employees were fearful for their futures, he gathered his staff and calmly reassured them, not with empty words, but with visible peace. He said, "We may not know what the future holds, but we know who holds the future." He didn't just say it, he lived it. While others made panic decisions, he made thoughtful ones. While others rushed, he prayed. While others cut corners, he kept his integrity. And eventually, not only did his company survive the crisis, it came out stronger. That's the power of inner peace. It doesn't eliminate the storm, it transforms how you move through it. So I have to ask you, what storm are you in right now? What's crashing against your peace? Is it financial pressure? Is it conflict in your family? Is it fear about your health or your future? Whatever it is, I'm here to remind you, Jesus is still in your boat, and He's not panicked. He's not wringing His hands. He's not scrambling for a plan B. He is peace itself. You don't have to react with fear. You can respond with faith. That's the action point today. Stop reacting. Start responding. Anchor yourself in peace. How? By keeping your mind stayed on Him. Not on the news. Not on the bills. Not on the what ifs. Fix your mind on the Word of God. On His faithfulness. On His track record. On His promises. Jesus didn't silence the storm to impress the disciples. He did it to reveal a deeper truth. That peace is not found in circumstances. It's found in Him. He didn't just calm the sea. He exposed the storm inside them. Their fear, their lack of trust, their forgetfulness that the Son of God was with them. And that's where most of our storms rage. Not out there, but in here. In the mind, in the heart. So here's the invitation. Don't let the storm dictate your state of being. Don't give your peace away to problems. Hold your ground. Walk like Jesus. Sleep when the world says panic. Speak peace when the world speaks fear. And most importantly, stay connected to the one who keeps you in perfect peace. Not by chance, but by choice. Because peace is not passive. It's a decision, a discipline, a mindset anchored in God. Let the world wonder why you're calm. Let them see that it's not because you're ignoring the waves. It's because you know who commands them. Let your life be a testimony of Isaiah 26:3, a walking reminder that peace is possible even in chaos, because you're not alone. And the storm doesn't get the final word. Peace does. Stick with me as we explore how you can master your emotions through self-discipline. Have you ever found yourself saying something in the heat of the moment that you wished you could take back? That flash of emotion, that surge of anger or frustration. It can feel like a storm you have no control over. But what if I told you that mastering your emotions isn't about suppressing them, it's about disciplining them? That true emotional control doesn't come from pretending you don't feel, but from training your heart to respond instead of react. The Apostle Paul said something powerful in 1 Corinthians 15:31. I die daily. At first glance, it sounds extreme, maybe even morbid. But Paul wasn't talking about physical death. He was talking about surrender, about the intentional daily decision to put his flesh, his impulses, his emotions under the authority of God. Every day, Paul chose purpose over feelings. That's what self-discipline looks like. You see, self-discipline isn't about denying yourself joy. It's about aligning yourself with purpose. It's saying, I'm not going to let a temporary emotion derail my eternal calling. That's power. That's maturity. That's wisdom. Proverbs 29:11 puts it this way. A fool gives full vent to his spirit, but a wise man quietly holds it back. That doesn't mean you don't feel anger, sadness, or disappointment. It means you don't let those emotions drive your decisions. You learn to pause, you learn to breathe, you learn to step back before stepping in. There's a simple practice I use that I call the pause. Before you respond to something that triggers you, whether it's an insult, an offense, or an inconvenience, just pause. Count to 5. Say a silent prayer. Ask, is this worth my peace? Does this glorify God? Am I reacting or am I responding? That moment of pause can be the difference between building a bridge or burning one, between regret and restraint, between foolishness and wisdom. Let me give you an example. There was a woman I know, strong in her faith, but struggling at work with a difficult boss. Every day was a new challenge, and one day, after being unjustly criticized in a meeting, she almost snapped. But instead of firing back, she paused. She remembered who she was and whose she was. She said to me later, if I had reacted the way I wanted to, I would have lost my witness. I had to let the Holy Spirit lead, not my emotion. That's not weakness, that's strength under control. That's discipline. Another tool that's helped me personally is journaling emotional triggers. At the end of the day, write down what upset you, what stirred your heart. And then next to it, write a biblical truth in response. Maybe you felt abandoned. Counter it with Hebrews 13:5, I will never leave you, nor forsake you. Maybe you felt overwhelmed. Respond with Matthew 11:28, come to me all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Over time, you start to train your mind to think from the word, not just from the wound. You see, emotions aren't the enemy. They're indicators, not dictators. They tell you something's happening, but they don't get to decide what happens next. That's where self-discipline steps in. And if Paul could say, I die daily, then so can we. We can die to the need to always be right, die to the need to clap back, die to the desire to retaliate, because what we're really doing is living in alignment with God's will, living with clarity, living with peace. We live in a world that tells you to express everything, to vent it all, to say what you feel right now, but wisdom, godly wisdom, says hold back, not because you're weak, but because you're rooted. Because you're led by the Spirit and not by the flesh. Because you understand that your future is too important to be hijacked by a moment of unchecked emotion. Mastering your emotions doesn't happen overnight. It happens one choice at a time, one pause at a time, one surrendered moment at a time. But the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. And the more natural it becomes, the more powerful your life becomes. Not chaotic, not dictated by mood swings or offenses, but centered, grounded, and strong. So today, decide to discipline your emotions. Not because you want to appear strong, but because you want to be strong. Because you know your calling is greater than your feelings. Because like Paul, you choose to die daily, not just to sin, to ego, to impulse. And in doing so, you rise, stronger, wiser, steadier, unshaken. That is the power of self-discipline. That is the beauty of emotional mastery. And that is the path of those who are truly walking in step with the Spirit of God. Another way to say unbothered is not letting people control your peace. Have you ever had someone push every button you've got, criticize you, attack you, misjudge your heart, and it took everything in you not to snap? That moment when someone's words or actions feel like arrows aimed straight at your peace? We've all been there. And if we're honest, it's not always easy to stay calm when someone is throwing shade, lies, or even curses your way. But here's the truth. Peace that depends on people isn't peace. It's performance. And God never called us to be performers for people. He called us to walk in His peace. One of the most powerful examples of this is found in 2 Samuel 16, 5 through 13. David, the anointed king, is on the run from his own son Absalom. And as if that pain wasn't enough, along comes a man named Shimei, throwing stones, literally, and cursing him. Now, David could have had him silenced. In fact, one of his warriors offered to take Shimei out on the spot. But David said no. He chose not to respond with retaliation. He said, "Let him curse. Maybe the Lord will see my distress and repay me with good for the cursing I am receiving today." That's deep. David had every right to fight back, but he understood something powerful. Not every attack deserves your reaction. David modeled something so rare and yet so powerful: emotional control in the face of provocation. And that's not weakness. That's wisdom. You don't need to react to everything and everyone, because when people control your reactions, they're controlling your peace. And your peace is too expensive to rent out to people's opinions or drama. Romans 12, 17 to 21 speaks directly into this. It says, "Do not repay anyone evil for evil. If your enemy is hungry, feed him. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." It's not just a sweet sentiment. That's strategy. That's how you win without losing yourself. That's how you stay steady when people around you are trying to shake you. I've learned this firsthand. There were times when I wanted to clap back, to defend myself, to prove I was right, but God whispered, "Respond to me, not to them." And I began to understand. I'm not a thermometer that just reacts to the heat of people's emotions. I'm a thermostat. I set the temperature. I decide the atmosphere I want to live in, and I choose peace. That's what I want to declare over you today. You are not reactive. You are responsive. You are not controlled by people's dysfunctions. You are anchored in God's presence. And that anchor holds even when the winds of criticism blow hard. There's a spiritual maturity in being able to look at someone who's lashing out and say, "I won't let your storm drag me out of my calm." You know why? Because peace is not found in the absence of conflict. Peace is found in the presence of God. And when your eyes are fixed on Him, what people say about you can't shake what He's placed in you. Jesus modeled this too, time and time again. He stood silent before His accusers. He didn't trade insult for insult. He didn't spend His energy defending His name. He entrusted His heart to the Father. And if our Savior could do that, then so can we. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, to pull you into their chaos, just remember David walking away from Shimei's stones. Remember Paul's charge in Romans. And remember who you are. Not a mirror of people's behavior, but a reflection of God's peace. Declare it with me. I am not a thermometer that reacts. I am a thermostat that sets the tone. I do not repay evil for evil. I overcome evil with good. I respond to God, not people, and my peace is protected by the one who never changes. That's how you live unshaken. That's how you walk with dignity. That's how you guard your atmosphere and carry yourself with grace. Not by letting people control your peace, but by letting God control your heart. This is the perfect moment to uncover how to turn setbacks into setups. Have you ever found yourself in a place where everything seemed to fall apart and you wondered, God, where are you in this? Maybe it was a betrayal, a rejection, a failure so heavy it knocked the wind out of your hope. Setbacks have a way of making us feel forgotten, broken, and sometimes even punished. But what if I told you that the very thing you're calling a setback is the soil where your setup is being planted? What if the pit you're in today is the training ground for the palace God has prepared for you? Let's talk about Joseph for a moment. In Genesis 37 through 50, we see one of the most powerful stories of resilience ever recorded. Joseph didn't just face one setback. He faced a series of them. First, he was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, and sold like a piece of property. Then, just when things started looking up in Potiphar's house, he was falsely accused and thrown into prison. And yet in all these things, Joseph didn't lose his integrity. He didn't let bitterness take root. He didn't let his circumstances change his identity. He stayed faithful. He served. He kept his heart soft toward God. And do you know what happened? In God's perfect time, Joseph was elevated. He went from the prison to the palace in a single day. Not because he fought for his position, but because he passed the test of perseverance. That's why James 1:3 says, the testing of your faith produces perseverance. God wasn't trying to break Joseph. He was building him. He wasn't punishing him. He was preparing him. You see, emotional maturity doesn't come when life is easy. It's forged in the fire of disappointment, through seasons where you have to wait, trust, and worship, even when nothing makes sense. God often uses trials to train us, to refine our faith, to strengthen our character, and to grow our capacity to carry what He's calling us to. I once heard the story of a woman, let's call her Grace, who had a thriving business, a beautiful home, and what looked like the perfect life. But in 1 year, she lost it all. Her business was stolen by someone she trusted, her house went into foreclosure, and she was left wondering how everything could go so wrong so fast. But instead of letting bitterness rule her, she chose to lean into God. She cried, yes. But she also prayed. She journaled her pain and let God heal her soul. Fast forward a few years, Grace didn't just bounce back. She came back stronger. She started a new business, one that now helps women recovering from financial trauma. Her mess became her ministry. Her setback became a setup. That's what God does. He takes what the enemy meant for evil and He turns it for good. But the key is how you walk through it. The test is not what happens to you, but how you carry yourself through it. You can't control people's betrayal. You can't control unexpected losses. But you can control your response. Will you give up or will you grow up? Will you become bitter or will you become better? When Joseph finally faced his brothers, the same ones who sold him, he didn't seek revenge. He didn't say, now it's my turn. He said, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. That's someone who understands the assignment. That's someone who knows God doesn't waste pain. Every delay, every disappointment, every detour, it's all part of a bigger plan. Maybe right now you're in a place where it feels like your dreams are on pause. You're doing the right thing, but the wrong things keep happening. Can I encourage you? Don't stop trusting. Don't stop sowing. Don't stop serving. Just because it looks like a setback doesn't mean it's the end. In fact, it might be the very beginning of your setup. Let James 1:3 be more than a verse you quote. Let it be a promise you believe. The testing of your faith produces perseverance. And that perseverance, it's not just about surviving. It's about becoming who God created you to be. Stronger, wiser, unshakable. So the next time life knocks you down, don't ask, why me? Ask, what are you building in me, God? Because your pit is not your prison, it's your platform. Your setback is not your sentence, it's your setup. And if you stay faithful, like Joseph, God will take you from the lowest point and raise you up for his glory. Remember this, God's setups often come wrapped in life's setbacks. But those who trust him in the dark will see his hand in the light. Keep going. You're being positioned for something greater than you can imagine. And maybe that's what you need to hear today. Not that everything is going to magically fix itself tomorrow, but that your faithfulness in the middle of this struggle matters. Heaven is watching how you handle the quiet seasons, the misunderstood seasons, the seasons when you feel buried. But here's the truth. You're not buried, you're planted. And there's a difference. When a seed is planted, it's hidden, it's covered in dirt, it's in the dark. But underneath the surface, something is happening. Roots are forming, strength is growing. And in due season, that seed pushes through the soil and blossoms. It produces fruit. But that never would have happened without the dark, hidden season. That's why Galatians 6:9 reminds us, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Joseph didn't give up. Grace didn't give up. And neither should you. You see, emotional maturity is not about pretending everything is fine. It's about standing in truth when everything feels uncertain. It's about choosing faith over fear, obedience over offense, and growth over grudges. It's about knowing who you are in God so deeply that no pit, no prison, no plot against you can shake you out of position. When Joseph stood in Pharaoh's court and interpreted the dream, he wasn't just a dreamer anymore. He had become a man of wisdom, discernment, and humility. He was ready. The setup was complete. And the same God who did it for Joseph is working in your story too. So don't rush the process. Don't despise the trial. What looks like delay is development. What feels like rejection may be God's protection. And what seems like an ending may be